Welcome to Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. This podcast was created with help from AI tools, so double-check any quotes before you drop trivia at your next movie night. Today we're opening the Necronomicon once again with Evil Dead Burn, the latest chapter in one of horror's bloodiest and most beloved franchises. And I want you to just imagine something for a second. You're standing on a freezing set.
Right? Oh, that's already a nightmare.
Right. And the director walks up and hands you a candle. And he tells you, point blank, to drink from it.
Just casually asking you to drink hot wax.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, you know there are special effects involved. But you're looking at this actual flame and you realize that if literally anything goes wrong, your face is going to melt off.
You just have to completely trust the crew at that point.
You really do. And if you were wondering what kind of unhinged dedication it takes to make a modern horror masterpiece, well, that is the exact level of brutal physical commitment behind our deep dive today.
It really is.
Because today we are tearing through this massive stack of sources. We've got director interviews, set reports, deep cut reviews, and our mission is to figure out how Evil Dead Burn actually manages to rewrite the rules of a legendary franchise without losing its soul in the process.
And honestly, it is such a fascinating balancing act to dissect because, I mean, you're looking at a property that has been around for 45 years now.
Which is an eternity in Hollywood.
It's unheard of. If you think about the landscape of horror cinema, most franchises from the late 70s or early 80s, they've either completely fizzled out or they've been rebooted into oblivion.
Or they just become parodies of themselves.
Exactly. They completely lose their edge. But the core trio behind Evil Dead, so that's producers Sam Raimi, Rob Tapert, and Bruce Campbell, they have managed to avoid that trap, and they use a very, very specific producing strategy to do it.
Yeah, reading through the interviews, it really reminds me of a relay race, but with a deeply chaotic twist.
Oh, I love that comparison.
Because usually, when you pass a baton in a relay, the next runner takes it, and they sprint straight ahead in the same lane. But Raimi's strategy is basically to hand the baton to an up-and-coming filmmaker, and he fully expects them to sprint in a slightly more unhinged, totally unpredictable direction.
He wants them to go off the rail.
Right. They actively foster this friendly rivalry behind the scenes. So every new director is fundamentally challenged to top the sheer intensity of whoever came before them.
And that kind of pressure really creates diamonds. I mean, we saw it when they handed the keys to Fede Alvarez back in 2013. We saw it with Lee Cronin for Evil Dead Rise. And now their chosen auteur for Burn is Sebastian Vanecek.
And the stakes for someone like Vanecek have to be just astronomical.
Oh, absolutely. Rob Tapert actually pointed this out in one of the producer interviews we looked at. He said the biggest challenge for these young filmmakers isn't just, making a scary movie. It's the career-defining pressure of not making a bad Evil Dead movie.
Right, because the fans will never let you forget it.
Exactly. It forces this intense, almost obsessive dedication to the craft. And Raimi actually tapped Vanecek for this after watching his 2023 spider horror film, Infested.
Oh, that movie is terrifying.
It really is. Raimi recognized that he had this incredibly raw perspective to offer the franchise.
Which naturally brings us to the script. Because Vanecek, alongside his co-writer Florent Bernard, they brought what they called their French DNA into the mix.
Yes, the French extremity influence.
And their stated goal sounds like an absolute paradox when you read it on paper. They actually went on record saying they wanted to make Burn the least bloody film of the entire franchise.
Which sounds like sacrilege for Evil Dead.
Right. But simultaneously, they wanted it to be the most violent and brutal. And if you know this franchise, it is famous for literal geysers of blood raining from the ceiling. So to understand what they were aiming for instead, Vanecek compared the intended level of violence to the infamous curb stomp scene in American History X.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that specific comparison tells you everything you need to know about the psychology of this new movie.
It's so visceral.
It is. Because think about how an audience processes fear and violence. When a movie throws, a cartoonish, ridiculous amount of fake blood at the screen, which classic Evil Dead does constantly, it triggers a sense of slapstick comedy.
It's gross, sure, but your brain knows it's exaggerated.
Exactly. It creates a comfortable distance between you and the pain on screen. You can laugh at it, but by dialing back the sheer volume of blood, Vanecek is actively ripping away that comfortable distance.
So you can't hide behind the comedy anymore.
Right. The curb stomp in American History X isn't terrifying because of gore. It's terrifying because of the agonizingly real physics of the moment. It's dry, it's heavy, and it feels uncomfortably real.
It's grounded.
Yeah, that is the French extremity they're injecting here. It forces you to just sit with the grueling endurance of terror rather than laughing at the walls being painted red.
But, capturing that visceral, sickening reality required a massive shift in how the movie was actually shot. Vonnegut essentially stripped away all the digital safety nets that modern Hollywood relies on.
He really went back to basics.
He did. He decided that if he wanted the audience to feel the danger, the actors needed to feel it too. So he leaned into extreme, grueling practical effects at almost every single turn. But, and I have to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
I get the artistic purity of wanting practical effects. I really do. But putting your actors in situations that demand incredible physical strain just to avoid using CGI, it feels a little bit irresponsible in the modern era of filmmaking.
That's a fair point.
Because, with how good visual effects are today, wasn't there a safer, easier way to get these shots?
See, easier is the trap that a lot of modern horror falls into. And yes, CGI is safer. And yes, it's a lot faster to shoot. But Vonnegut understands a fundamental truth about audience psychology. The human brain is just this incredible pattern recognition machine.
It always knows when something is off.
Exactly. Even if you don't know anything about visual effects, your subconscious instantly spots when gravity doesn't look quite right or when the lighting on a digital model doesn't match the actual room.
It makes me think about watching a stage magician. Like, if you watch an illusionist do a genuinely dangerous physical stunt like holding their breath in a locked water tank, your heart is just in your throat. You intuitively feel that risk.
You're invested because the stakes are real.
Right. But the second you suspect they are just using a trick mirror or like a camera cut, you just lean back in your chair and check out. You stop caring because the danger isn't real anymore.
And that is the exact mechanism at play here. To keep the audience leaning forward, Vonnegut demanded genuine texture.
Like with the lighting.
Yes, take the lighting, for example. Instead of shooting in a flatly lit room and then just tweaking the shadows in post-production, he used real fire on set to illuminate the actors' faces.
Which is wild.
It is. He was actually pulling inspiration directly from Stanley Kubrick, who notoriously used only natural candlelight to expose the film for certain scenes in Barry Lyndon.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Because using live fire creates these micro fluctuations in the light. It casts dancing, unpredictable shadows that CGI just really struggles to replicate.
But the toll that takes on the cast, and we're talking about Sohaila Yacoub, Hunter Duhan, and Lucianne Buchanan, it's staggering. They were pushed to their absolute physical limits.
Without a doubt.
I mean, we mentioned that anecdote earlier about the fake candle. One of the actresses talked about having absolute blind faith in the stunt coordinator, Clinton, and the rest of the crew. They would literally ask her to drink from a prop candle or throw her bodily onto a roof, and she just had to trust the rigging and commit to the performance.
And the camera work itself was just as physically demanding as those stunts. The cinematographer, Philip Lozano, he wasn't just setting up tripods in the corner. The camera was highly choreographed into the violence itself.
Yeah, there was that frantic fight inside a car, right?
Yeah, where they utilized a 360-degree light source just to capture the claustrophobia continuously. It's incredibly disorienting in the best way. And later on, there is this massive, sweeping one-take sequence through the living room.
Oh, the one take. I read that I required 13 grueling takes to nail perfectly.
13. Because every prop, every movement, every single lighting cue had to align flawlessly in real time. If one person misses a mark, you have to reset the whole thing.
And nothing showcases that practical philosophy better than the bathroom ceiling scene. This is where Alice, the protagonist, gets violently dragged up the wall and then literally onto the ceiling by a Deadite.
It is such a show-stopping moment.
And the traditional Hollywood solution for a shot like this is just to throw money at it, right? Like, you build a massive, expensive rotating room on a gimbal. You bolt the toilet and the sink to the floor, strap the camera down, and literally spin the entire set like a washing machine.
Just to create the illusion of walking on the ceiling.
Exactly.
But Vonnegut didn't have the budget for a pristine rotating room, and honestly, he didn't have the desire for one either. The mechanics of how they pulled this off are just fascinating.
Wait, so how did they do it?
Well, instead of moving the room, they moved the camera and the actors using raw physical force.
You're kidding.
Nope. They set up this complex rig with a 360-degree camera head, and they attached industrial cables to the performers. Then, a team of stunt workers pulled those wires manually, using counterweights to physically drag the actors across the tile and up the wall.
That sounds exhausting.
It was. The sheer exertion required from the stunt team pulling the ropes and then the actors fighting the harness to make the movement look fluid and terrifying, all of that translates directly onto the screen.
Because it is all happening in camera, the violence feels incredibly aggressive, which naturally caused a massive headache with the censorship board.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, there is a deeply disturbing scene where the character Joseph destroys Thaya's head using a dishwasher.
It's brutal.
To shoot this, they built a highly detailed practical head with realistic skull structure and gore inside. And it takes 35 brutal individual hits.
35 hits. That is relentless.
And what makes it so chilling is that Vanacek stripped all the music out of the scene. You don't hear a score, you just hear the cold, wet impacts. He actually had to trim the sequence frame by frame just to secure an R rating and avoid an NC-17.
You know, the decision to remove the music there is a complete masterstroke in audio psychology.
How so?
Well, in most films, the orchestral score acts as an emotional safety net. Like, swelling strings tell you when to feel sad, sharp brass tells you when to jump, and pulsing synths tell you it's an action scene.
Right, it kind of holds your hand.
Exactly. It reminds you that you are just watching a movie. When you completely remove the score during a 35-hit practical gore sequence, you strip away the director's guiding hand. You are suddenly just trapped in a silent, echoing room watching something horrific happen. It feels invasive.
It really does. So we have established that the physical and sensory toll of this film is punishing. But all of this practical carnage is actually anchored by an emotional toll that is arguably much heavier.
Yeah, the emotional core of the film is what really elevates it.
The story follows Alice, played by Sohaila Yacoub. She's a French woman who is grieving the sudden death of her husband, Will, played by George Pooler. And she travels to this remote, dilapidated house for his funeral.
And of course, she ends up trapped there with a family that is deeply, fundamentally broken.
Exactly. I initially went into this expecting the typical cabin in the woods setup, where a bunch of teenagers read the wrong book.
Right, the classic formula.
But Alice isn't just trapped with demons.
Yeah.
She is trapped with her deceased husband's highly dysfunctional family. So you have her in-laws, Susan and Edgar, played by Tandy Wright and Errol Shand. You've got Will's brother, Joseph, his girlfriend, Thea, and Grandma Polly.
And the crucial piece of context here, the thing that colors the whole movie, is that Will, the man who died, was violently abusive toward Alice.
Yes. So she is mourning, but she is also navigating the incredibly complex reality of being freed from her abuser while entirely surrounded by the family environment that shaped him into a monster in the first place.
It's so layered. The narrative structure basically operates entirely like a Trojan horse. It uses the franchise's promise of a supernatural bloodbath to sneak in a devastating, complex drama about surviving domestic trauma.
It's brilliant.
The Deadite possession in this film doesn't just happen randomly. It acts as a horrifying catalyst for the toxic cycles that are already present in the house. The film takes a really hard look at toxic masculinity, specifically channeling it through the character of Joseph, the younger brother.
Oh, man. Joseph is such a terrifying character study. He initially presents himself as the quote-unquote nice guy of the family, right?
Yeah.
The one who is different from his brother.
Right, he tries to distance himself.
But as the night goes on, you realize he is constantly bottling up this explosive rage. It is a behavioral coping mechanism he clearly absorbed from growing up around Will and their father, Edgar. And when the demonic forces take hold, it is essentially just ripping the mask off.
The possession weaponizes that repressed toxic energy, just bringing it all to the terrifying surface.
Which forces the surviving characters to confront that trauma in the middle of a literal slaughter. I mean, there is a pivotal scene in a bathroom between Alice and her mother-in-law, Susan. And the writers, Vanacek and Bernard, reportedly rewrote this specific conversation thousands of times to get the nuance right.
Thousands of times. That shows so much dedication.
They needed to perfectly capture two women who hold vastly different, conflicting views on the abuse Alice suffered.
And that sounds like an impossible writing challenge. I mean, you have these two women trapped together. The daylight is outside. The demons are pounding on the door.
Right. They don't have time for a long, drawn-out therapy session.
Exactly. They have to communicate all of this lingering resentment and trauma while strictly focusing on surviving the next 5 minutes.
And the brilliance of it is that Susan isn't written as a cartoonish villain. Her perspective on her son, however flawed or blinded by maternal instinct it might be, makes complete sense to her. It creates a deeply uncomfortable gray area for the audience to sit in. The interpersonal horror is just as claustrophobic as the supernatural horror.
It really is incredibly heavy material for a franchise known for chainsaws and boomsticks.
Thank goodness for Grandma Polly, played by Maud Davey, who steps in to provide some very necessary pitch-black comic relief amidst all that generational trauma.
Oh, she is fantastic in this.
And speaking of subverting the usual horror tropes, we absolutely have to talk about Max.
Max the dog, played by a very talented real-life dog named Dax.
It is the ultimate unspoken rule of horror movies. You never, ever hurt the dog. The audience will turn on you instantly.
It's the quickest way to lose your viewers.
But Vonnegut shatters that rule by introducing the franchise's first-ever Deadite dog. He explicitly wanted to give the animal a cool, powerful moment to shine, which results in this incredibly gruesome but undeniable standout sequence.
And breaking the dog rule is a massive risk, but it serves a really vital narrative purpose here. It expands the mythology of what the Deadite curse is actually capable of infecting. It shifts the threat level entirely.
Which naturally leads us to look at how this isolated, intimate family drama actually weaves into the wider, chaotic universe of the Evil Dead.
Because the timeline of the Evil Dead franchise is notoriously messy.
It's all over the place. Vonnegut even joked in an interview that Sam Raimi himself probably doesn't fully understand how all the movies and the TV show link together anymore.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But rather than ignoring the past, Byrne lays down some massive lore connections for the fans who are paying close attention.
And the most seamless integration is how Vonnegut directly ties the events of this film to the previous entry, Evil Dead Rise.
This detail totally blew my mind. Okay, so if you remember Evil Dead Rise, there was a cold open at a lake house involving a Deadite named Jess.
Right, the one hovering over the water.
Yeah. Well, in Byrne, we learn that Jess is actually the possessed driver who causes the fatal car crash that kills Will.
Which is such a brilliant tie-in.
So the horrific events of the previous movie are the direct inciting incident that triggers the funeral, which brings this entire toxic family together in this house. The continuity is just elegantly woven into the plot.
He also digs deep into the lore to explain why this specific dilapidated house is targeted. The film reveals that the family's grandfather wasn't just some random man. He was historically part of a secret cult dedicated to fighting the Deadites.
Oh, the cult lore is so good.
And he hid a magical dagger somewhere in the floorboards of the property. The demons aren't just there to torment Alice. They are drawn to the house because they are actively trying to find and destroy that dagger.
It rewards the hardcore fans without alienating the newcomers, which is a tough needle to thread. But I think my absolute favorite thing Vonnegut does with the lore is the ultimate subversion during the film's climax.
Oh, the weapon swap.
Yes. Throughout the entire runtime, he leaves these little breadcrumbs. He intentionally teases the presence of a chainsaw in the background of various shots.
And every horror fan knows the chainsaw is the holy grail of Evil Dead. It is Ash Williams's iconic weapon.
Exactly. When you see a chainsaw on an Evil Dead set, you are conditioned to expect someone who's going to lose a limb, strap the saw to their stump, and just go to town on some demons.
You are practically begging for it at that point.
But Vonnegut swaps it out at the very last possible second. Instead of revving up a chainsaw, Alice defeats the final boss using a heavy-duty industrial jackhammer.
It is a masterful bait and switch.
It feels like watching a legendary rock band walk out on stage, strike the opening chords of their most famous hit song, and then right when the crowd starts singing along, they transition into a completely face-melting, entirely unexpected guitar solo you have never heard before.
I love that rock band comparison because it highlights the catharsis of the moment. It is a profound mark of respect for the audience.
How do you mean?
Well, Vonnegut knows exactly what the fans are waiting for, but he also knows that giving them exactly what they expect robs the climax of its tension. By handing Alice a jackhammer, he introduces a shockingly brutal, visceral weapon that the franchise has never utilized.
Oh, the sensory impact is crazy.
Right. Think about it. The deafening noise, the bone-rattling vibration, the sheer, messy, concussive force of a jackhammer. It perfectly matches the French extremity aesthetic they were chasing from the very beginning.
The audacity to subvert expectations like that, it doesn't just stop at the climax, though. It bleeds directly into the post-credits, where the fundamental underlying rules of the entire mythology get completely rewritten.
Yeah, Vonnegut was very vocal about his goal for the ending. By the time the screen cuts to black, he wanted the audience to feel physically and emotionally drained.
Mission accomplished.
Seriously, he purposefully designed the pacing to force a moment of silence in the theater, just giving everyone a chance to catch their breath. And then he hits them with two massive, lore-shattering post-credit scenes.
Let's break down the first one. So, Grandma Polly, who somehow survives the house massacre, is revealed to have canonically worked alongside Professor Noby.
The man who originally discovered the Necronomicon back in the 1981 film.
Exactly. But she doesn't survive as a human. She survives as a Deadite. The scene shows her escaping the property and actively passing the demonic curse onto a helpful, unsuspecting motorist who pulls over for her.
Which is such a grim ending for that driver.
But it brilliantly sets the stage for a modern-day sequel where the curse is no longer confined to a cabin or an apartment building. It is out on the open road.
That is a brilliant setup, but the second scene is the one that truly breaks the established universe.
Oh, this one stressed me out.
So we cut to a sterile crematorium where we see the unclaimed ashes of a woman named Ellie. And for anyone who needs a quick refresher, Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland, was the terrifying possessed mother from Evil Dead Rise.
The ultimate fan-favorite villain of the modern era.
Precisely. Now, if you recall the blood-soaked finale of Rise, her sister Beth managed to destroy her possessed body by shoving her through a massive industrial wood chipper.
Which was so epic.
It was, and historically, in the lore of this franchise, total bodily destruction was the only guaranteed way to permanently stop a Deadite. You dismember the host, you destroy the brain, the threat ends.
Right.
But in this final post-credits scene, we watch as Ellie's cremated ashes manage to infect and possess the coroner's young daughter.
Okay, if you were sitting there wondering how shoving a demon through a wood chipper isn't enough to kill it anymore, you are not alone. It completely broke my brain.
It's totally unfair.
It is like dealing with a highly destructive digital computer virus.
Yeah.
You take the infected hard drive out, you smash it with a hammer, you melt it down in a furnace, and you think you are safe.
Yeah.
But then you realize the malicious code somehow mutated and jumped to the cloud before the drive was destroyed. It is absolutely terrifying.
It fundamentally rewrites the stakes of the franchise moving forward. I mean, if the curse can survive in cremated remains, the rules of engagement have completely changed.
And this ties into the prequel, right?
Exactly. This revelation is doing heavy lifting to lay the groundwork for the upcoming 1972 prequel, Evil Dead Wrath. It suggests that the history of this demonic entity and the knowledge of how to actually stop it is far older and vastly more complicated than anyone previously realized.
Which means nobody is safe and no weapon is truly permanent.
Right. So leave yourself with this chilling thought. If total bodily destruction is no longer a guaranteed kill, and this supernatural curse can literally spread through infected ash blowing on the wind, the stakes for humanity have quietly, dramatically evolved. We are no longer looking at a localized cabin-in-the-woods problem. The Evil Dead universe just introduced a global apocalyptic threat.
And that wraps our journey into Evil Dead Burn. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow horror fans. And let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and remember, maybe don't read from mysterious ancient books.